Hey everyone, welcome to the Tech Blogs. My name is Virendra Yadav and today we are going to discuss programming languages you can plan to learn as a part of 2022. Couple of blogs which I have seen online talking about learning some of the other programming languages, which I think is not giving a clear picture. As per my thought, it is always good to understand the landscape and the ecosystem before starting on any of the programming language. This is the first thing which you start with a laptop or a desktop where you write some piece of code. If you're writing alone, yeah, it is good enough, but mostly it doesn't happen when you write a code for a bigger application or the product. So there are a team of tens or hundreds or 1,000 people who are working on the same piece of code, and that's where it becomes a little complex. You write it, then you need to manage it, how different people are writing the code and how everything is managed together, right? So that's important. Now what you do is you write the code and then you commit the codes. There is a tool called central repository, either it's a Git or CVS based technologies. So this is something which I am representing as a box, as a one on the server, and you push the code, you save the code into the CVS, or you call it as a Git. There are different providers. We'll talk on those providers as well over the time, and you save in there, and then you have a different mechanism how you can manage the code. And then next it comes how you deploy the code. So deployment, you can do it using some certain set of tools, and those are categorizing within some concept called DevOps, which is again defined with the combination of development and the operation kind of thing, so that we can again discuss in upcoming slides. And that goes to the server. On the server you can see applications which is built in Java, Python, Go, and so on and so forth. Those are sitting on the containers. It's again a packaging of the software where it sits and runs. So there is a team who is managing this, and then it comes to the operating system, which you are well aware of. It's Linux, Windows, or Mac, and different flavors of Linux, of course. And then it comes to the infrastructure. I don't want to get into that different level of your OSI, network layer, physical layer, and logical layer kind of thing. But you understand that, okay, it's what is there in a bare metal, that's the instance, right? Now, once it is deployed, the code is running, then you code what it will do. It will fetch the data and save it somewhere. So that saving is, you do it in the data store. Data stores, again, RDBMS, cache memory, secondary memory, your data lake, data river, data ponds, data SQL, NoSQL. So there are different format of it. So this is where you store the physical data. Once you have stored the physical data, then it goes to the analytics piece of it, that you do the analytics, you generate the different data with the historical, different reports with the historical data. And again, your machine learning, artificial intelligence is something which machines use this data to learn it, and then so that's where this come in picture. Now coming next is your once the application is deployed, it is it got the data, it is analyzed. Now how user are interacting with this application. So user interact the application broadly in three ways. One is through websites, which you can call it as a web design. Your mobile apps, which you can access from your mobiles using native, hybrid, or mixed kind of mobile apps. Then you have the wearables, your watches, your health bands, your eyeglasses, your smart glasses, you can call it as. And there are different ways you can interact with further, and everything is something which is calling the APIs, or application programming interfaces, which is sitting on the server. So that is something which is the landscape. Now why I'm talking about this is you can see where you fit in well, whether you are fitting in well in developing the code, or your DevOps piece of it, or managing the code, or you are fitting well in deployment and managing the server or database areas, or analytics, or web design, mobile app, or wearable. So everything is a different fields, and in itself is a specialization. So it is not that you learn Java and you fit in very well in all the areas. You need to see where you specialize in and start preparing yourself accordingly for that particular area. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, some of the languages like Java, Python, which we learn, which is fit in most of the places that call generically accessible languages, and few are very specialized kind of languages. So it is not straightforward that okay, you learn Java and it will fit in everywhere. It's not the case. And again, some of the specific languages which is very limited to some piece of it, like Swift is for mobile app development, C++ for operating system development. So those are again very special purpose languages, right? So again, the thing is that it's not you learn Java and you will get paid more, or you learn R, which is very specific purpose languages, and you will pay less. Not like that. It is something which depends on which area you want to get in. If you want to go for data analytics, maybe R is the best suit for that particular kind of environment. So you need to think which area you want to go for. Now, this is the different languages based on a popularity. Python, Java, JavaScript is covering the majority stake. Rest other are catching the lesser space in terms of the popularity, but it again doesn't mean that these are the languages you fit in for everything. No, it's not the case. You need to think of that, okay, which area you want to go in, and based on that you learn your language. Now, some of the code repositories, you can go back and forth and see which repo fits in well, either CVS or a GitLab, but for Git there are different providers: GitLab, GitHub, AWS Code Commit. So you can learn it, you can create the account, and important part is it's free for learning and development. So you can very well create free account, start learning it. If you want, comment it and I will create a session for that. Next, I told about the DevOps. So DevOps, you can learn these technologies: GitLab, GitHub, Jenkins, Black Duck, SonarQube. Azure, Microsoft Azure is having its own DevOps tools. Redshift is having AWS Code Pipeline, Code Build, Code Deploy. These are the different tools to create the pipeline, build or deploy. CodeStar, your cloud build. So there are multiple tools, and that's not the end. There are a lot many other tools as well. Now, the next is server side. So if you go to the server side, so server side is not something which is very specific to language. There is more than language, which we call it as a framework. So you need to focus more on the framework. So that's where you can find the difference, that everyone is talking about the language, I am talking about tools and the frameworks, right? So you need to understand the frameworks very, very well, because those are the one which is key for any of the technologies and any of the interviews or any of the discussions in terms of the technical forums. So these are the different frameworks which you can think of it, but again, it's not the end of it. Your Java is having a Spring Boot, Node.js platforms, Sail.js, AngularJS, React.js. Python is having a Django, and Ruby on Rails. PHP is having Laravel Coordinator. So if you are learning PHP, you can think of any one, or at least to learn these languages. Other will follow similar. Golang is having Gin, Bigo, and Iris. Containers, you have the Kubernetes, ECS, and Docker. serverless. You can think of learning AWS functions or AWS lambdas, but yes, the cloud platforms, if you start learning any of the cloud platforms like Google or AWS, GCP or AWS or Azure, you will be able to find many of the things out there, so you can start learning it from there. Then it comes to the data store. So I suggest that data store is something which is yes, nothing stops you to start with learning the data store as a fresher if you are, but you can start learning data store if you have you accumulated some experience, right? So you can learn SQL. In SQL you can think of MySQL, which is free. Oracle comes with the license. Oracle is having its own lighter version as well. Google Cloud Spanner, you have the Couchbase, AWS DynamoDB, Google Cloud. We have the Bytedable, which is a NoSQL. In memory, we have in-memory caches, which does within a RAM, primary memory. We have the data lake, Snowflakes, Databricks. We have the data processing technology for the processing the big data, that is the Hadoop and Spark you can think of. But again, for Hadoop and Spark, I'll suggest that you first accumulate some experience with small data and then start learning the big data. That is going to give the better value add. You can understand better. I'm not talking about that, okay, what's the job, what is the package, but you understand the system very well before getting into it. Now, next is the observability. This is emerging and very, very well needed in the industry. So, observability is something which how you understand the functionality of the application, how you observe the application which is running. So, it's as simple as when you're, let's say, if you see modern cars, you can see that car is running, you can see engine is good, coolant is good, temperature inside, outside, you can see health of the engine, everything is stable and it is running. So if something is breaking, right, so let's say your wheels are or tire is having a less pressure, air pressure, so what it does, it will give you the indicator that your air pressure is low. Now it doesn't mean that car will not move. It does mean that okay, you need to take a look and you fix it instantly so that it will not break. And that is the whole idea of having the observability in the application. So it gives you proactive symbols that okay, this is something which is going wrong and you can fix it so that it will not break, right? So and this can be done in different ways. We have a APM, you have a synthetic service map infrastructure, and there are different providers who is doing their own kind of implementation. New Relic, Datadog, Dynatrace, Logic Monitor, and there are many. Your AWS is doing it, your Microsoft is doing it, your Google is doing it, your there are multiple solutions on the open source world is also available which does it. But again, this is something which you need to understand before, if even you have to have some experience in hand so that you can understand the monitoring well. Otherwise, if you don't have the experience, you will not able to grasp the information well. Now next is the data sciences. So this is something how you analyze, how you read the data, how you intercept the data. And so it's more of the learning the data out of it. And this is again good place to learn. You can start creating some permutations from the data, some learning from the data. But I suggest that okay, first start learning with the small data, then start getting into these courses. It is going to help if you have 5 to 7 years of experience, and then you start learning, you will get the better hold of it. Now next is the user interface. That is something which is very interesting and very intuitive, and you can start even as a beginner in the world, in the IT world. And many of people think that okay, user experience is means it's more about UI design. Yes, UI guy should have extreme sense of design, that is always there, but you can have the better experience on the different devices. So you can do it in your for laptop, desktops, big screen TVs. You can see the watches, wearables, your AR VRs. So those are all UI related devices or UX related devices, you can call it as. And how user interacts with the system, that is a UX. That's again the next level of UI. It's not next level of UI. First you get hold of the UI, you understand how system works, then you start interacting with the users, and then figure out how UX for your product works well, right? So that's something which is for experienced people, but to start with, UI is the best place to start with, and that's even the freshers can start. These are the different tools which can be used. I have segregated it in two different broader areas: your HTML5, UI, UX, JavaScript, and related framework. And for the application based, where you need to install the application, right? So that is Android Studio. You have the Xcode, iOS platform, Hybrid, Ionic, Monka, and these are the frameworks. And that's all for these application. I think we already crossed 20 minutes, so let's stop it here. And you feel free to put the comments. I'll try and read all the comments and respond to it. Thank you so much.